That's David. Of a surge deep into opposition territory. With one of the more regular suspects, Smith. Ritchie. Coming beyond Walker. Pugh. That'll do it! That will do it! Pugh for Bournemouth! The roof of the gold sands is raised. Everyone here knows what that could mean to this.
Welcome to yet another interview here on Back of the Net, as we welcome yet another Bournemouth legend, this time from the 1990s. So that counts Neil Dawson out, right, Neil?
Oh God, I thought it was me there for a minute. No, you're right. No, we need to go back to the 80s.
Yeah, how are you? You all right?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Looking forward to today.
Me too. So who have we got for you today? Well, he was a pivotal signing in our first Great Escape season. That's 94-95. His darting runs and crucial goals were instrumental in our survival, particularly anybody who was there for that Shrewsbury game, last one of the season. He went on to play 241 times for the club, scoring an impressive 52 goals, and was equally at home up front or as a creative midfielder. He was part of the Wembley team of 98, and he was capped 7 times by the nation of his birth, Northern Ireland. Lately, he has managed in England and also in the Scottish Premier League. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Score a Goal, Stevie Robinson, Robbo, as we're going to call him today. How are you, Stephen?
Very good. Glad to be on today.
Excellent. So let's crack on. We're delighted to have you here. And do you want to tell us a bit about being born in Northern Ireland, growing up there, playing football? What was it like?
It was in the middle of the Troubles as well. So football removed you from all that. It was brilliant. You know, the religion didn't matter, that side of things. So, you know, the football brought everybody together. So it was great. I was brought up in a little village called Crumlin. Everybody always puts it down as Lisburn, and I was born in Lisburn, but I actually grew up in Crumlin. Very proud of that there. You know, still have a lot of people I stay in touch with, and I played for Lisburn Youth as a kid. And we had 7 internationals, 7 Northern Ireland internationals from that one group of Dave Healy, Keith Gillespie, Colin Murdoch. I'll forget a few, Aaron Hughes. So we had a lot of big names played for Lisburn Youth. And it was great times. I played for Linfield for a short period of time before I signed for Spurs. But that's when football was fun. You know, really enjoyed it. Played for all the youth international sides growing up as well, and obviously signed for Spurs when I was 16, and was there for a couple of years before I finally went down to my real team, Bournemouth.
Well, I once heard Norman Whiteside said that anyone that grew up in Northern Ireland that had a lot of skills was described as the new George Best. Did you ever get described as the new Norman Whiteside?
Unfortunately not. I was like probably half the size of Norman. We're very, very different, and unfortunately I didn't have as much ability. I scored a lot of goals. To be fair, we had a very good team. Lisburn Youth they were the team at the time before Northern Ireland. Actually, a lot of things changed. All the Irish Premiership teams didn't have their own clubs, so it was boys' clubs were the big thing in them days. So it was Lisburn Youth and another team called Hillsborough Boys. So we were lucky enough. We won everything going. We then had a team in the Milk Cup, which we won as well. I played for Spurs in the Milk Cup, and I played for a team called Dungannon Swifts as well in the Milk Cup, who are now in Irish Premiership. I managed to get player of the tournament, leading goal scorer, and that. So I scored a lot of goals, and that continued. Funny, you were introducing me there, and you said 52 goals. I scored all them goals in the first 6 years with Bournemouth, and then something happened. I couldn't score after that. All went wrong. I think I only scored another 11 goals the rest of my career. So I'm blaming my son for that, Harry, because when he was born, the goals dried up. So we'll blame him. But
and how did you get picked up by the Spurs system? Did they have scouts out in Northern Ireland? Did you support Spurs from over in Northern Ireland? What was the way that worked?
Well, the connection was so Lisburn Youth had a guy called Robbie Walker, who's still a very good friend of mine, and Robbie was the chief scout for Spurs at the time. So Robbie obviously was bringing a lot of the boys, the better boys from Northern Ireland, over to Spurs. So I actually went to Glasgow Rangers, Man United, and Spurs. So I was very lucky. I had the choice of all three who to sign for. I actually remember, funny, when we got to the cup final, I remember telling the story to Alan McCoist about Graham Souness phoning my brother-in-law Eddie and trying to get me to sign for Rangers. I wouldn't answer the phone. At Alex Ferguson phoning my dad, and I was hiding from everybody because I fell in love with Spurs straight away, and had a real sense of loyalty to the guy Robbie Walker who brought me over there. And I was going back and forward from as 11 years of age. I actually ended up signing, in them days it was schoolboy forms and what have you. So I actually signed a 6-year contract at 14, which took me up until I was 20 years of age. So, that guarantee, and I loved the digs I stayed in when I went over there. It was a small little council flat, reminded me very much of home. So, I decided to go there and enjoyed every minute of it. And probably, you always wonder, sliding doors moment, have you signed for Rangers? Will you sign for Man United? But no, I'm happy. I enjoyed my career. It's led to many good things and many happy memories. So,
who did you support as a kid? Because a lot of people growing up in Northern Ireland support one of the Manchester or Liverpool clubs, don't they? Did you have an affiliation with anyone?
Yeah, Aston Villa.
Oh, right, okay.
Completely abnormal for Northern Ireland. As I said, it was Man City's grown now. It seems to be the team, but it was Man United or Liverpool in them days. But my dad was a big Aston Villa fan. In them days, flights weren't as readily as available as they are now. So he was able to take me over once a year. We went over to Villa Park. We're in the Holt End. I remember watching a game 3-3. My heroes were Gary Shaw and Peter With, and that was
that European Cup winning side. That was your
European Cup. Yeah, Peter With, Gary Shaw, Tony Mortimer, was it Des Bremner, all those boys, and so they were my heroes growing up. So it was a strange one, but you're always influenced by your dad. And he was a big Aston Villa fan, and I've managed to not tell anybody, but I also supported Rangers growing up as well. So that stayed quite quiet up until now. But seeing as I'm not managing in Scotland at the moment, I can say that.
Yeah. Excellent. And when you were at Spurs, you made your debut. I think it was against Blackburn Rovers in the actual Premier League. Was that under Ozzy Ardiles? Was he the manager at that time?
Yeah, Ozzy was. I signed with Terry Venables, so it was Terry that signed me in schoolboy forms, and I had a bad injury at the time, a bad back injury, so I signed injured. And I met a really good friend of mine, John Sheridan, who was the physio at the time, and he was fantastic with me, and probably the reason I managed to keep playing. And then Terry left and Ozzy Ardiles came in, and within a few weeks, a manager always takes to somebody, and for some reason he took to me. We had a lot of injury problems at the time. Teddy Sheringham was out injured, real struggles up front. So it ended up being myself and Nick Barmby played up front, probably the smallest strike force in history for Spurs. But that was brilliant. I knew nothing about it until about an hour and a half before kickoff. Ozzy in his broken English managed to tell me. I still wasn't sure whether I was starting after I'd spoke to Ozzy. It was the game Eric Thorstvedt actually got a 10 in the newspaper. I'd never seen a goalkeeping performance like it. It was that Blackburn team that won the league with Sutton and Shearer and Newell and top team. And they absolutely battered us. But I done it okay. I had a decent debut. Got kicked from pillar to post by Colin Hendry. I remember it well. So yeah, good experience. And unfortunately, not too many more appearances after that.
What was he like as a manager, Ozzy? Because he was a phenomenal player, but his managerial career didn't do that great at Spurs, and then obviously he went to Newcastle and nearly took him into what's now League One. Was he just one of those brilliant players that couldn't get it across when he became a manager because he was just too good himself, or what was your view?
it was literally all out attack. You felt sorry for the defenders at the time. It was literally nobody defended by the two centre halves and the number 6, as he called it. It was literally 3 players on the pitch defending. He couldn't watch any long running, any pre-season running. Everything was small-sided games, circles and rondos and what have you. It just was total football. And obviously coming from the background that he did, and the Argentinian players that he played with, the total domination of the ball. And, he was exciting. He was great to play for as a forward-thinking player. And games were always, as a fan, it was very, very entertaining. I'm not sure how much you'd win, playing like that. But it was certainly, the famous 5 at the time. It was at Spurs, and it was exciting times and exciting to be involved in it. And he was very good with me. He looked after me and gave me my opportunity, which I'll always be thankful for, to play in Spurs first team. And unfortunately, I didn't kick on from there, but obviously got my opportunity to go to Bournemouth, and the rest is history, and never looked back really.
And you played, didn't you, in that Spurs? I don't know whether he was your at the same age as you, but Neil Young was in that Spurs setup as well, wasn't he? And did you both talk about coming down to Bournemouth, or was that quite separate that you both ended up making the journey down?
Young, was a year older than me, so no, it was strange. It was we got the phone call about going down from Mel. I knew nothing about Bournemouth at the time. A young boy just come over from Northern Ireland. I'd only known Spurs, been there like a couple of years, and we got the call from Mel about going down. He was bringing young blood in. He was wanting to go, and I ended up going down. Had a couple of training sessions, and I just fell in love with the place. It was, Mel really sold it to us. Me and Youngie drove down together, and I stayed in his house. I remember staying in his house, and funny, for about 6 months after that, Youngie thought my name was Robbo Robinson. I'd lived with him for 6 months, and he'd never heard anyone call me Stephen. And until my mum phoned one night, and she called me Stephen, he actually said to me, "Who's Stephen?" I was like, "I've been here for 6 months." So he actually thought my name was Robbo Robinson at the time. So I didn't get anything other than that. But, we just, we got blown away by it. We're young boys, came from big clubs. And, you had Matty Holland come down, Steve Jones come down, with Scott Mean there, Big Fletch. And all of us signed round about that same time in a 6-week period. And we just got blown away by the place, the town itself, by the football club, what Mel was trying to sell to us. And all of a sudden you felt important, from being like a number at Spurs and, not being really well known, to actually being a first team player and being really vital to what Mel wanted to put together, and as I say, I phoned my wife at the time, Tracy, and just said, "Look, we're moving down. I'm actually moving to Bournemouth," which she wasn't too happy about at the time, so it didn't go down too well, but a brilliant decision when I look back on it now.
When you signed, I think we had 9 points at the time. Did you understand the magnitude of the task? Did Mel explain to you, that you were joining a club that could quite easily have got relegated, weren't you?
If I'm being honest, no. I was 19 at the time. I think Youngie was 21, and Jonesy was a little bit older. Matty was the same age as me. That we were just young boys, and I think the idea of coming down to a club and playing first team football, playing under a manager like Mel, and being wanted. I think the biggest thing in football that I learned from management is if you show a player you really want them, and Mel knew everything about me and watched me numerous times, and you felt important. But did we know the size of the task? Did we know probably the pressure would be under? No, we didn't. I have to be honest, we didn't at all until you became engrossed in the football club as time went on, and you realised actually people's jobs are on the line here and people's livelihoods are at stake. So it was, when you're young, you don't worry about things like that. We went with the flow. We signed for a club that we thought we could do very well at, and it turned out to be a good, as I've repeated again, a good decision.
I think the critical game I remember was a Christmas game against Crewe Alexandra that season. We drew 1-1, but it was like that was a first really good result for a long time, and I think that felt like the turning point. You could see that the team was beginning to gel. You had Russell Beardsmore, who was really a good quality player as well in that side, and it just seemed to all be coming together. Was there a moment you thought, actually, even though we're bottom and we've only got 9 points, this is on? It
was funny. We always believed, with the quality that Mel had brought in, You know, I think at that time when we signed, there was an aging squad there. You know, I think it was Kevin Russell and Warren Aspinall, and they were getting a little bit older. And Mel had a good blend. He kept Big Steve Guppy, and he kept Ian Andrews and Beardo we brought in as well. So we had a little bit of a mix, put in all the younger players. So we never actually believed we were going to get relegated. You know, we had a real belief. Mel, you know, I took a lot of things from Mel in terms of man management. You know, Mel didn't coach very much. It was more about how he made you feel. And he made us feel like all the pressure in the world was off us. We were just playing football as young boys, enjoying ourselves. And it was, at the time, thoughts of management and coaching didn't even cross my mind. But when you look back, you thought, at no stage did I feel under any kind of pressure until that last game against Brentford. Brentford and Shrewsbury were the two games with, actually, this is up to us now. But until then, Mel removed all that, and John Williams removed all that pressure. And it's something I've taken throughout my career. You try and take the pressure off players and allow them. We were allowed to express ourselves. We played a style of football that allowed us to show how good we were. And we believed in the talent that he had brought in, with the quality of Jonesy coming in and Matty coming in, Beardo. He had obviously played at Man United. Rob Murray coming to the fore as well. We had good players and we believed that we weren't going to go down.
The game that did it for me, I always remember we beat Birmingham City, who were top. I think it was a night. It was one of those great nights under the floodlights, and they came down top, and we were just getting onto a right steamrollering run, and we beat them 2-0. And they didn't have a kick the whole game, and they had some great players like Kevin Francis, and they were a good side. You'd have enjoyed that one being a Villa fan, of course. But that to me was where I thought, we really got it. Did you feel it like building and building and building through the season?
You could feel the confidence coming. I mean, results obviously breed confidence, and you knew that we were playing quite well and just weren't getting the results at that stages and getting draws when we maybe should have nicked wins. But it was my first season. It was Matty's first season. Everybody's first season at a professional football club where you were the main people in the team. So that takes time, and it was a big risk from Mel, and you probably don't get that opportunity to do that nowadays with the amount of young players. It's very similar to what I've probably done at Motherwell. We got a reputation of throwing young boys in and at the right time. I suppose Mel didn't have that choice. He had to bring players in on very little money. He had to bring players in that had no experience whatsoever, and you could feel players learning the game on the job, so to speak. And by that Birmingham game, that was maybe a bit of a culmination in terms of our confidence growing, momentum, our belief growing, and you could just feel like something's happening here. And at no stage did we think, right, we're in trouble here, we're in real trouble. And Mel, as I say, took that off us completely, but you could start to feel the momentum, and then the fans started believing, people started believing in it, and then it just continued as the season drew on.
So that Brentford game, that was pretty epic, wasn't it? We had to go out there, we had to win. They were going for promotion. Were they top at the time? I think they might even have been top.
I think had they won, they would have won the championship. They
would, and we absolutely needed 3 points there because that would put it in our own hands. And what are your memories of that game? I've got big memories of that game, but what was it like playing in it? It must have been some experience.
I remember because I was rubbish. I had an absolute night. I remember, honestly, I was absolutely rubbish, and it was my bad touch that actually put them through on goal. And I know it because I watched it recently. I'd done an article in The Athletic, and the guy was from Bournemouth, and he was talking about the Great Escape, and he sent me the video footage and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, it was my touch that put them through on goal. I was relieved to see Jonesy and Scott. Was Scotty scored as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, Scotty scored. Yeah,
we were so relieved to see the game turn around, because that was the first game where the importance of what had happened. This young, enthusiastic side who, in them days we'd been out together, we had a drink together, we enjoyed the wins together. Nowadays, you couldn't do any of the stuff that we probably get up to. It would be all over social media, but we got a real bond, and we can actually go down in history here, saving the Bournemouth, saving jobs, and people around the club, the importance that you grew a relationship with them. And as I say, but we played well. We played really well that day, and you could just see the confidence growing. And when we scored the goal, Scotty scored from distance, and Jonesy went through and scored as well. And that goal went in. It was just sheer relief, and all set up for for one game at the end, and all of us going away thinking, somebody's going to be a hero here. So it was, they were the two games that really stand out to me. The rest of it's a little bit of a blur because, as I say, we didn't really realise the magnitude of what we were dealing with and what we were playing with.
Well, I'm glad you two can remember it, because there's 4 pubs on the corner of the Brentford ground, and I was in my 20s, and all I can remember was the trip home singing. I can't remember much about the game, but obviously Jonah scored that day. You had a really good understanding with Steve Jones. Was that something you worked a lot on in training, or did you naturally, because you find players that you naturally just bond with, don't you? Jonesy
was just a one-off. Jonesy was the fittest boy I've ever seen. He could do no training, no extras, nothing at all. We put him in a run, and he could, hands down, he'd eat the biggest load of rubbish. He had a drink, and he'd done everything that shouldn't have made him a good athlete. But he could run like the wind, and he was a really, really good finisher. He was actually, Mel Machin was what Bournemouth didn't have. They didn't have that pace and penetration in behind. And Jonesy was great to play with because he wanted to run away from the ball all the time. He wanted to run in behind. He knew his strengths, and he allowed that space in behind. And playing alongside Big Fletch, they did a great understanding, and balls that went up there allowed me just to play in them pockets in behind and pick up the ball and be creative. And, if you had any doubts, you put the ball down the side of people, and Jonesy had run away from them. And he created problems for defenders, and he created a lot of space for myself and Scotty, to score more goals from midfield. And people don't maybe appreciate that maybe, with the naked eye, what he done, the amount of times he stretched games and ran that direction. Everybody now wants to come to the ball. Everybody wants to come to feet. But Jonesy created the space for, I'll use the word, more technical players like myself and Scotty. Because Jonesy didn't pretend he was technical. He was better than he gave himself credit for. Yeah. But he knew what he was good at. He could run. He was a massive threat, and he scored so many vital goals and important goals in that season.
And Neil, do you want to ask about the social life of this side? Because it sounded like it was a bit of a crack.
Well, you've asked it, Jeff. We always ask everyone who was the best on a night out, and who was the best during your era on a night out?
Scotty was the best. He always did. Fletch was the entertainment manager. He would have arranged everything. We were a really close knit bond. Me and John Bailey were the miserable ones. We were the ones that were miserable all the time and moody. And slagged everybody off.
It's true.
Jonesy wasn't actually. He didn't have that many nights out. It was more. He was back and forward to London all the time. It would have been more of Fletch and Scotty, myself and John, Rob Murray. Big Guppy would have come out as well. So we did. We went out as a team and we enjoyed ourselves. We enjoyed when we won. And Monday nights I think it used to be student night, and it was a pound a pint, and it was well enjoyed. And Mel and John knew it very well. So come Monday and Tuesdays, we used to run up and down that pier, and you soon got that out of you. I mean, you wouldn't do it now. Players wouldn't do it now. The game's changed a lot since then, but we certainly had an unbelievable camaraderie, and we had nights out, and the days out at Wembley when you're making the videos. Saturday Night Fever, in your white suits and all that kind of stuff. Memories that you'll not forget. But it was a bunch of boys. I always describe it as a bunch of misfits put together. Mel brought us all together, boys that hadn't quite done it at bigger clubs, and brought us all together and got that energy and camaraderie. And there's a lot to be said for team spirit. That's it drives you a long, long way. And when the chips are down and the things that we faced in that season, and then the money issues that Bournemouth had going forward, we stuck together massively. There was no egos, there was no big time Charlies, and everyone just mucked in together, and we partied together and we played together. And I think that showed as the season went on, and people became very friendly. And Youngie, how did I forget Youngie? Youngie was the top man on a night out. Actually, he just used to drink himself into oblivion, and he won't remember any of the nights out. So they were good times. Bournemouth were really good times. We enjoyed a night at the casino after games and what have you. The cage and the zoo were the big places in them days.
Oh, the zoo, God,
yeah, the cage and the zoo.
We actually were very important because Fletch got us into the into the place right at the front of the queue. We thought we were important in them days. But how times have changed.
Yeah.
When you say how times have changed, I was thinking it's great to hear about footballers going on a pound of drink student night, because now it's all bottles of Krug and Range Rover Sport.
We were only on about 200 quid a week, so we were, me and John. It would have been me. Actually, it was probably only me and John went on the pound a night student nights. You know, we had our 4 or 5 pints of Guinness in some wee local pub in Southbourne or something. That would have been me and him, miserable, not wanting to mix with anybody else.
We had him on a few weeks ago, and it did take us a while for us to find someone he liked. That's for sure. Yeah. But he was very entertaining. Jeff, we should ask about Shrewsbury, really, shouldn't we?
We should do. So Shrewsbury, Robbo, 2 goals. Do you want to talk us through them now? Can you still remember them?
Oh, I can remember them. Believe me, I can remember them, because I used to hear about the other Great Escape. There was another Great Escape, and we were, as a few saying, hold on, there wouldn't have been a football club if we hadn't stayed up on that stage, Yeah. But it was a brilliant night, an absolutely brilliant night. I remember afterwards, Shrewsbury had put up all the. For some reason, in my youth and stupidity, had said, "I'll tame the Shrews" was the headline, and it was they put it all over their dressing room to motivate them, but it didn't quite work. But I think we were 2-0 up within about 10 minutes. The place was packed out. Dean Court was absolutely packed out, and I remember Jason Brissett going down the left, put a cross into the box, and I managed to get a toe poke to it into the corner. The second one was Jonesy. Shot from distance, as he always did, never actually passed anybody. And I just anticipated the goalkeeper dropping it. And 2 easier goals I'll never score. The second one was a side foot from 5 yards, but I remember running off. My mum and dad and family were all in the crowd as well. So it was brilliant. It was brilliant. The rest of the game was an absolute blur. We were 3-0 up and absolutely cruised the game. And that was fantastic. Fantastic memory. Fantastic.
You do yourself a disservice with the first one. Your first one was a very, very clever finish. It was a proper goal scorer's finish. I remember it because you had to nip in and divert the ball, didn't you? If you'd hit it, the keeper would have saved it, but you flicked it very cleverly. That's how I remember it anyway. Yeah,
it was a wee flick. Well, I'd say him a right. Brest got down the line. Brest was a player who never got the credit he deserved, never had the career he should have had. I remember Brest phoning me. He was on day release from prison. I haven't spoke to him about 10 years, and I don't know what he had done. But he had got himself on the straight and narrow again, and I don't know what he had done, but I hadn't spoke to him in about 10 years, so it was good to hear from him. And people like John Bailey, who I've only lost touch with, as you do in football. You go into your own little world in management and playing and lose touch with people. So it was great to catch up with John again and Jason Brissett. But he was a talented boy, and as I say, he went past players like they weren't there. And the first goal, he got down to the byline, cut it back, and I just managed to get a little toe poke to it, flick it into the far corner of the net, and that set us on our way. And
we talked about him with John Bailey because he was 1 game in 4. He was Premier League, wasn't he? And the other 3 he wasn't, and that was the issue, wasn't it, with Jason Brissett? He was either outstanding or he was not so good.
I think that's the same as every winger. I think I've realised that now in management, that no winger, there are 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4, and you have to find a way to accommodate them. And I think Briss was a talented, one of the most talented boys I've played with. Which is a shame he didn't fulfil the potential that he had, unfortunately. But he was a talented boy.
So what about Mel? John Bailey was also telling us that he had a bit of a short fuse at times, and he told us a story that one time you took a penalty, missed it, and Mel had you up against the wall, telling you to have stuck it in the other side. Was he really that fiery?
Yeah, he could have been. Mel was fiery when he needed to be, but he had a brilliant way about him. I think it was John that had me up against the changing room wall. I think it was. I don't know if that was at Stoke or somewhere. I can't remember now, but I think it was me and John were fighting on the pitch, and Mel probably split us up somewhere along the line. Mel was fantastic, and as I say, I've taken something from every manager I've worked with, good and bad. And Mel was someone I'll always hold dear to me, as somebody I'm not in touch with anymore, unfortunately. But I remember actually when I went back to to Bournemouth. I went to Preston for half decent money in them days, and I hadn't quite worked out. I had bad injuries and lost a wee bit of confidence. And I'd gone alone at Bristol City, and the footballing gods. My first game back was Bournemouth away for Bristol City, and I remember after the game, Bristol won, and Mel came up to me, whispered in my ear, and said, "I forgot what a good player you were." And I felt about 7 foot tall. And I thought, somebody who I respected so much, give me that massive boost of confidence. And that's how I made you feel all the time. As I say, the pressure was relieved off you. You'd knock on Mel's door and you were raging why, you'd been dropped or you'd been taken off or something. And Mel would listen to you or pretend he was listening to you. You'd rant and you'd rave. And by the time you'd come out of the office, you'd forgot what you were going in for. Mel had been watching the racing in the background because he had no real interest in what you were saying, but it was, and he was watching what horse he had on at Cheltenham or something. But by the end of it, you'd forgot what you'd gone in for. You loved the manager and you thought you're the best player in the world. So, and we used to go out and say, "What did he say to you?" And he'd said the same to every single player. So we'd all ended up having the same conversation, that you were brilliant. You'll play next week. And he told about 20 players were all playing. So we all went away very happy. But man management, he was one of the best I've worked with, most definitely. And as I say, confidence in football is massive. And he made a bunch of boys who had lost their way a little bit make them feel, $1 million, and that counts for a lot.
So Steve Fletcher was a player. Now, a lot of people forget he actually had a spell at centre-half in that season. It might have been before you guys turned up, but he did a really good job at centre-half. And then
that's why we were bottom of the league. Yeah. With Fletcher's mobility, I can see why they were bottom of the league before we come then, yeah.
And then he obviously played up front. So you at times you had a really good sort of like big man, little man act going on. Was he... did you find that he helped your career or playing with him? Or
Fletch was actually my best man. So he was, I was very close to Fletch down there. He was a great guy, character as everybody knows, but didn't get the credit he deserved in the team. He was brilliant to play with. Actually, when I had to do a team that I played with, including all the international players I played with, I actually put him in the team. Just because of what he brought to everybody else. Again, he was somebody that, we went a little bit longer to, but his hold-up play and his unselfishness for everybody else was fantastic. And he was technically decent. Couldn't strike a ball, but his touch was very good. His awareness of the game was very good, and he was brilliant to play for. He was a great folly to play off. Probably made most of my goals, even being honest and giving him way too much credit here. But he was very good to play with, really, really good to play with, and a guy who was a real character as well. Myself and Scotty were able to run off him. You knew when the ball went forward, it was going to stick. And he was certainly better up front than he was centre half. Definitely, I'd love to have played it the other way around. I'd love to have played against him if he played at centre half, just all the time. But no, I think he was a massive part in that.
All his best partnerships, when you look at them, were with similar players. Because yourself, Jermaine Defoe, he had a great little spell with James Hayter and Mark Steen. All were similar-ish players, and I think that it was that classic lower league setup, really, wasn't it? Where you had that big man, small man, quick man, slow man, and it worked. It worked a treat, didn't it?
Yeah, I think him and Steenie were brilliant together. Steenie was fantastic. His movement was absolutely brilliant. And Fletch was a great folly for him again. He'd done all the hard stuff. He took all the hits. He was brilliant in the air. Great. It's very similar to big boy Stevie Howard, who I played with at Luton. And it was that was my two best spells in my career, was playing with them two, running off them from midfield. Both boys who were very, very similar, good in the air, great attributes, good hold-up play. As I say, probably I always give him stick and say he wasn't brave enough to leave Bournemouth. He got a stand named after him because he wouldn't leave Bournemouth. But absolutely great servant to the football club. Really good servant to the football club, and made many players look very good. Steenie would acknowledge that. I'm sure Jermaine, who's played with some top footballers, he was a great foil to play with.
So the 2 seasons after the Great Escape season, we survived relegation, and then it sort of financial difficulties really started to overtake the club. I mean, what was that like playing those 2 seasons? Because a lot of the side sort of moved on, didn't they? Because they had to, they got sold.
Yeah, you started seeing as I say, Mel put a really good squad together, and then you started to see the breakup of the team. and he added new players to it and recruited very well. But, eventually, when the players started to get first team football, people started to notice. And, obviously the money troubles in the background were well known, well documented. And, you started to fear for your future, really. People were losing their jobs and being made redundant. And it was really, really tough times. I remember going about, with the buckets and begging for money, and in the winter gardens and places like that. It was tough times to to see where the football club are now to where they were at that stage. It's incredible difference. And I've only ever been back once. I never had an invite back, actually. So I've only ever been back once since then. Since the stand was turned around and the stadium. It was when I was at Luton, I went back there again. And it's great to see. It's great to see. And unfortunately, probably all the older people. Your people like Nimbus and John, the groundsman, and all them older people who it was their lives. Bournemouth was their lives, and hopefully. They seen a little bit of it, but it's fantastic to see where the football club is now compared to those days begging for money, and literally, I think it was hours away from going bust, and people coming in to save the football club, and you didn't know where your future would be. So it was scary times. Didn't know whether you were going to get your wages. We had to take deferments, and and credit. I'm not sure the players of today would be taking the deferments that we done, but with a real loyalty to the football club, we felt a real sense of pride playing for the club, and the town, and how the town and club rallied together was fantastic.
I always remember that game. I think it was away at Bristol City where all the players had to sign to say they'd play, even though I don't think you were covered on insurance, and if anyone had got injured. And I think it's sort of Ian Cox led it, and I remember going up that night, and we all wondered if that was going to be the last time we ever saw the club. And I think we won one. You might even have scored. Did you score?
Coxey scored, I think. Didn't he?
Coxey scored. Yeah, it was, that was always one of my most spine-tingling moments as a Bournemouth fan. That game.
Yeah, I remember. And the thing is, but nobody thought twice about it. We did feel that it was obviously risky. Nobody was insured, and we were playing really at a big risk, but I think we all felt a sense of debt to Bournemouth. In terms of Bournemouth rescued a lot of people's careers. A lot of us weren't going anywhere. We were at Premiership clubs or clubs where we were nobodies, and Bournemouth put us on the map. And I think we felt a sense of loyalty that was the least you can do. And as I say, nobody really thought about it. We went into that Bristol City game, and we got a result that night, which was unbelievable. And thankfully, strides were made, and we managed to save the club and go forward. But it was scary. I think it was touch and go. It really was touch and go. You hear, and funny, you hear it must be me because Luton had the same problems. They had similar financial problems, and Motherwell before I came up there, they had financial problems. So it must be me. It follows me around everywhere I go. It was, and it was. When you see the club now compared to those days, and days from going out of existence, really. It was scary times.
Bolton Wanderers will be your next job then.
Yeah, no, they're okay now. I'll get something. I'll go bust. I'll go bust for that. I only picked ones that are struggling.
So tell us about the cup run, because that trip to Wembley again is something that lives with a lot of Bournemouth fans and will do for forever and ever. What was that experience like?
That was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Our suits, Wembley. It was the Saturday Night Fever when we made that record and things. It was great, absolutely great. My abiding memory of the game at Wembley is afterwards a boy called Wayne Burnett scored. Wayne Burnett scored, didn't he? The golden goal. It was the only time they ever done golden goal, and I was watching them. So it was my fault, but I was marking. I was marking two men. So me and John Bailey always argued about this. So I had two men on the edge of the box, and the one that I let go scored the goal, and that was it. No chance of recovering. I remember seeing Wayne Burnett coming into the players' lounge at the time, and he had the cup in his hand. He had a beautiful wife or girlfriend at the time walking up beside him, and I just thought, oh no. And funny, about 10 years later, I was working for the IFA, the Irish Football Association. I was Northern Under-21 manager, and we had a seminar and meeting, and in walked Wayne Burnett to do a presentation. He was putting a product forward to the Irish Football Association And I said, Wayne, the last time I seen you were running off after I dropped you at a corner, scoring the winner in the cup final, and he was laughing and remembered it well. So it was but brilliant. The lead up to it and the build up to it was great, you know, and it just, you know, absolutely brilliant times.
It was it was incredible. Just incredible seeing that many, because obviously we've had events since where we've took that many fans somewhere, but that was the first time that we travelled with sort of that amount of fans. It was just an incredible day to be part of. John Bailey obviously was really chuffed about his goal. He was chatting away about that when he came on as well. But no, it was just incredible. Following that, we had the couple of seasons, 97-98, where we came close to getting promotion 2 seasons in a row, came close to getting in the playoffs. And they were probably, I thought, 2 of your more mature seasons in terms of performances, and the level of performance rose again. What do you remember about those seasons?
I think as a team, we grew, you know, and we had a style of play that was really attractive on the eye. We played some really, really good football. We were always at the danger of, we constantly lost players all the time. Every time somebody done well, you know, the next person went. But Mel and John just had an eye for players, bringing young players in and constantly bringing them in. I think, did he bring Richard Hughes in as well?
Yeah.
He brought Hughesy in as well. And, you know, every time we lost somebody, you know, Jamie Vincent came in as well. We lost Coxey in one of those seasons as well, to Burnley. We just had a lack of, you know, to find a Mel had so many contacts in the game, and it was players that suited our style of play. You know, as I say, we built on our seasons. People grew when we first came down to Bournemouth. Boys hadn't played football. You know, we hadn't experienced what it was like to do the dirty side of football, you know, the play, you know, tugging people and you know, buying fouls when you needed to buy fouls, and everybody grew with a little bit of more experience. And it was a shame we didn't probably have the infrastructure to get promoted, if the truth be told. You know, we really didn't, and we had close, you know, key pivotal moments in seasons didn't quite go our way to get into those, you know, positions in the league. But, you know, for what we had and the money that we had and the budget that Mel had, you know, if anything, we probably overachieved to get anywhere near that there. You know, to be honest.
I remember the Dean Court game where Manchester City came down, and the bench was like big enough for about 4 people if you were lucky, right? And they were all along the touchline in front of us because they couldn't sit down. There was like so many staff, and we held them. We held them in that game. I think it was a 0-0 draw. It was really close. They even had a couple of players sent off, as I remember. But those were epic encounters, some of those games, weren't they?
Yeah, I remember. I think Kevin Horlock played. And
That's right.
I think Kev said to me at the start of the game, all the fans at the behind the goal were singing "Score a Goal, Stevie Robinson," that song. They were singing the song, and he went to me, for F's sake, he went, "I can't believe you've got a song about you. How have you managed to get a song and I haven't?" Yeah, it was good. And, you know, big teams coming down to Dean Court, and it was, you know, they brought a tremendous amount of fans, and, you know, we were competing with teams like that on a budget that we should not have been anywhere near people. And I think it's testament to Mel and, you know, John and the coaching staff, and, you know, and in them days there was no fitness coaches, there was no recruitment guys. Mel done everything, John done everything, you know, and to even be up and challenging in that division with some of the bigger teams with bigger budgets and, you know, more staff. It was literally Mel and John and the physio, Kitman. That was it. Nowadays you've got 20 people on the bench, and, you know, you've got recruitment guys and assistant recruitment guys, sports and analysts and all those kind of things. And we never had any of that. We never had any of that at Bournemouth. So for us to get anywhere near getting promoted or being the top areas of the division was probably massively overachieving. You know, I would say, in comparison to now and the setup Eddie brought in, the club that's been built on the back of, you know, Eddie's success is brilliant to see. No, absolutely brilliant to see.
Do you remember that game, Neil? Because Manchester City player got sent off for looking angrily at the ref.
Oh, did he?
First time I've ever seen that in a game. But
I remember better the game at Main Road that season. Where I think there was 35,000 in Main Road, and Fletch scored, but we lost 2-1 in the end. But that was incredible, because we, you know, just being in a crowd that size. What's interesting as well, Robbo, is that that game at home against Man City and the game against Shrewsbury that we talked about earlier, your generation of players played in front of bigger crowds at Bournemouth than we did in the Premier League, because obviously this crowd has shrunk. So there aren't that many clubs that go up to the Premier League and can't get the level of crowds that they achieved in League One or League Two.
I know, it's strange, that, isn't it? And that'll probably what will be the thing that probably holds Bournemouth back until they're able to extend it. Or, the stadium's great now, until they're able to. I don't know if there's an ability to extend it, but it's. I think the whole interest what was built up from when we stayed up the Great Escape season, then all of a sudden you build that little bit of momentum. You have a connection with the town. I think, I don't know what it's like now, but there's a real connection between the fans and the players. They felt very close to all the players lived in Bournemouth. We all stayed down there. We shopped in Bournemouth. We ate in Bournemouth. We went to Lorenzo's. We all ate in the place. We're all part of the community, and it was a real community club. And when we stayed up, and then we got to Wembley, people seeing you around the town. It was incredible. You felt, the truth is, you felt like a superstar down there. It was a small club in a big catchment area. The nearest club was Southampton and Portsmouth and what have you. But we were like, you were well known. People recognised you. But anywhere you went, you were treated very, very well. And I think that connection between fans and players was probably the best that I've seen. Motherwell's probably the nearest club I've seen to Bournemouth. There's a real connection, a real local community feel to it, and I think that's why the crowds got better. And in the bigger games they came out, and obviously your Man Cities of the world bringing big crowds down. Because when we first went down, I think the crowds were like 3,000, and on a bad rainy day, and then they grew, and the anticipation got bigger, and the expectation grew as well. And until Mel started recruiting, we played a nice style of football, and it was nice to see. And it's nice to see now that the stadiums, when they're in the Premier League, full houses as much as they can get in, and the club constantly growing and constant investment in it.
I think to answer your question, it certainly was that link between the players and the fans certainly was there in the side that went up to the Premier League, and then it's probably disappeared in the last couple of years with the people actually playing for the club, probably more for money than anything. And we've got some players that we don't quite identify with as much, but hopefully that'll get sorted out in the next couple of years. Obviously, the guy that made all that happen was Eddie Howe. Now, he would have broken into the team, wouldn't he, when you were a player there, because it was Mel Machin that gave him his debut. What do you remember as him as a young lad? And I guess you never saw anything that would lead you to believe what he'd go on to do.
No, not at all. Great boy. Very, very work orientated. He was very dedicated, very quiet. Eddie was very quiet, didn't say too much. Obviously was more of a student of the game than he was with it. We came in as a young boy with a really lively bunch of players. We had boys that had big opinions and lots to say. Eddie kept himself to himself. He was one of the younger boys, came in the same times as James, I think, as well, James Heater. Them two were sort of in the same era. David Town, young Towner, people like that there. So they all came up from the youth team. Again, credit to the youth system. I think it was Driss was there. Driss was taking the youth team at the time as well. And I think maybe it was Sean Brooks there, I can't remember. But they were the boys bringing the youth boys up. And Bournemouth were the club that we had to bring youth boys through. And Eddie was one of those young local boys that came through. And funny, I actually remember the day he got injured. He'd done his knee. It was out, I believe now, where the training ground is in Kings Park. It was like just, I think there were community pitches in them days. There wasn't anything to it, but we used to go out afterwards and strike balls and just do a wee bit extra. There was pitches up the back that were council pitches, I think, in them days. And Eddie was out just doing a little bit extra. And I remember his knee going right round the other side, dislocated his kneecap. And I think he struggled with that all throughout his career, after that there. So I was there that day that he done it. And Steve Hardwick, the physio at the time, he came out and dealt with him. So he always had that. But he was always a dedicated boy. But did I see him going on to do the things he done and have the career and management that he's had so far? No, but absolutely delighted for him, and always text him and tried to stay in touch with him, and, was really happy to see him do well. A Bournemouth boy through and through, had the club at heart, and, he went away for a wee while. Didn't quite work out. I remember seeing him up at Burnley at the time. And he struggled a little bit when he went there. But, the job he done, sometimes people are just made for each other, and there's a fit and a connection And it was, you couldn't probably get a more perfect fit than the club and Eddie.
And what about the other players that you played with? Who would you say was the most talented of them all?
At Bournemouth, a lot of talented boys. Obviously Russell Beardsmore was a really talented boy. You don't play for Man United if you don't have talent. And we've spoke about Fletch, and you'd Coxey, on the ball, coming out with the ball was elegant. Jamie Vincent, really, really good player. Matty Holland, Matty, out of everybody, probably did Matty go on and do have the best career out of everybody. Matty was like a 6.5 out of 10 at everything. Matty didn't excel at anything. He was just done well at everything. He was good at everything. Didn't have some. He's a good athlete. He was good in the air. He had 2 good feet. He scored. He defended. He didn't really have an attribute that made him an 8 or 9 out of 10. Where some people have goal scoring or technically brilliant. Matty was just very good at everything. But probably the main attribute that he had was his dedication and his ability to. He was so focused and dedicated. And he went on to have a brilliant career. Scored in the World Cup, and Matty was probably the one that's went on to probably have the highest, play at the highest level and the highest career, I would imagine. Scott Mean had so much natural talent, and ended early, had bad injuries, and unfortunately, I'd probably say Scotty was probably the most naturally talented boy at the club when we were there. Everyone had different. I think that's what worked at Bournemouth. Everyone had different attributes. Fletch was brilliant at the air. Matty was a brilliant athlete. Hughesy was technically very, very good. Matty probably made the best out of his ability. He, as I say, didn't excel at anything, top notch, but he managed to have a very, very good career. And I don't mean that to be derogatory at all. I mean that I can't be any more complimentary to him. I work with players now who have a lot more talent than Matty ever did, in terms of natural ability, but without the attitude. Hard work always beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And Matty was the epitome of that saying. He worked so hard and he made what talent he had, be at the top level every single day, and so dedicated to it. So, probably naturally talented Scotty, but who's going on to probably have the best career and playing at the highest levels would probably be Matty Holland.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was looking. There were some really interesting loan players came during your spell here, including Rio Ferdinand. Had a spell at the club. Did you ever nutmeg him in training?
And Rio was too big to nutmeg. It was. I remember Rio. Yeah, Rio came. And Michael Dewberry came.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
At one stage with Michael Dewberry and Rio Ferdinand, and it was funny. Chelsea called Michael Dewberry back, and he didn't want to go back. He was like, "No, I want to stay here." That was the camaraderie and what we created here. And the same with Rio when Harry wanted Rio back. Rio didn't want to go back. He wanted to stay and play for Bournemouth because Mel had created that environment, and the camaraderie we had among the boys and the talent we had among the boys. They suddenly had come from West Ham and Chelsea. They were nobodies at the time, good young players. But, all of a sudden they were somebody down here. They were recognised everywhere they went. They'd, become stars in their own right down playing for Bournemouth. And they didn't want to go back. And, the rest is history with the two of them. Michael went back and had a very good career as well. And Rio went on to fantastic things. Probably now you say Rio would have been the best player at Bournemouth I played with, but he wasn't there long enough.
Yeah.
Matty was there a lot longer. But Rio was so talented. So talented. He glided. He was a Rolls Royce footballer. He really was.
He was 17 or 18, wasn't he? And I remember he used to mark some gnarly League One centre forwards, but he just cruised away from all of them. It was you could just see he was going to be incredible. Same with Jermaine Defoe. You could see it in the first 2 games that they were going to do something very special. You
can always tell. I mean, probably outside of Steve Davis, who's probably the best player I ever played with, and was lucky enough to coach him in Northern Ireland as well. The first day I ever seen Steve Davis train, when I was in the Northern Ireland squad, I thought, you're a star, you're a superstar. I can't get near you. I can't, you close me down too quickly. Rio was the same. When you trained with Rio, the first day you went, well, this boy is going to be something special. And you thought, he's a young boy. The rigours of League One football, some of the more experienced boys, giving a little elbow here or a nip here, stand on your toes, didn't faze him at all. And, you need that. I spoke about Matty having that, that sheer attitude to be the best he could be. Rio had everything. He was so talented, so quick, 2 great feet. I think at that stage we were undecided where he was going to play, you know, whether he was going to play midfield, whether he was going to play at the back, because he was so talented. You could put Rio up front and he would still have been very good. So no surprise whatsoever with the career he went on to have and, you know, the levels he reached.
So you left the club at the end of the 99-2000 campaign, Stephen. What was that all about? Because your best years were still to come, weren't they?
Yeah, it was. You always think the grass is greener, don't you? You always. You know, as you say, you alluded to earlier, the team had started to break up a little bit as well, and you know we had lost players and players had left for money at the time. And Bournemouth were always a football club that needed to sell players, you know. And Coxey had moved to Burnley, and I had the choice to go to Burnley or Preston. And you know, Mel was very friendly at the time with Burnley's manager Stan Turnant, so it was. You know, it was always the two of them where I was going to go to. I chose to go to Preston, a team that just got promoted into the Championship, and you know, it didn't quite work out for me for various reasons. You know, I'd gone from being the top man at Bournemouth, you know, really, and maybe that was just in my eyes. I thought I was the top man, but going into that team, we've been very successful. The midfield of Sean Gregan and Mark Rankin, they played every game. David Moyes was the manager, and you know he sold the club to me. Preston was a really good football club, you know, and really good infrastructure. Stadium was there, you know. It was a step up in levels, you know, from where Bournemouth were at the time. It really was a step up in level. It was a chance to play in the Championship, and I managed to play 30 times there before I left. But I had problems with my back. I went there. I always had problems with my back throughout. You know, I had an operation at Bournemouth. I had an operation when I was 16. An operation at Bournemouth and another operation at Preston. I got back, I got into the Preston team, scored actually the game I came back, and then I'd done my ankle. And it was funny, I was up in Scotland, I'd done my ankle. I was a boy called Paul Hartley, who have since in management come across as well. But our game was cancelled through David Moyes' connections in Scotland. Took us up to Scotland to play. And I got done in a friendly game just when I broke into the team, and I spent months trying to get to the bottom of it. And in the end, they found a small piece of bone that had stuck to the nerve in my ankle. So, you know, people hadn't believed I was actually injured, you know, and I just couldn't force my way on a regular basis into the team. So it was a club that was a brilliant club, you know. I know that do I regret going in hindsight? Yeah, because I didn't play. And I didn't kick on the way I should have. I felt I could have kicked on, and you know, I went on loan at Bristol City. As I spoke about, one of the first games was back at Bournemouth, and Preston was a good club. It just one of those things that just didn't quite work out. But we actually got to the playoffs the year I went to get into the Premier League. So you know, they just kept winning. They were on a roll. They had momentum, and it was really difficult to break into. And you know, you lose a wee bit of confidence in yourself and your ability, and you know, it's difficult. But I think experiences like that bode you very well for where I am now in terms of dealing with players' confidence and how to motivate them and dealing with disappointment, which is very difficult for the modern player.
Yeah. But by that stage, you were firmly settled as a midfielder. I remember when you first started playing there, I'll be honest, I couldn't see it. But then after a few months, you could clearly see that you were becoming a midfielder, and then you became an excellent midfielder. Where did you prefer playing? And was it a surprise for you when you were asked to move back a little bit?
I hated playing in midfield. I absolutely. It was Mel. Do you know what? Funny, and I've just read about Steve Cotterill getting taken into hospital again. So you know, thoughts are with him. Hopefully he's okay. But Cots was still there at the time, and I remember Cots coming up to me and saying, "Do you know what?" He said, "I don't know what you are." He said, "You're not a striker. You're not a midfielder. You don't come and receive the ball. I don't know what you are. You're somewhere in between." I think probably he was right. I was somewhere. I was caught in two stools at that stage. I was coming, you know, to get the ball deep as a centre forward, and then when I was a midfielder, I wasn't dictating play enough. And then Mel had seen someone, and Mel just thought, you know, he can play off people. And I know then he moved Fletch back up front again, which was probably key to me doing better. Because I used to just vacate the midfield. I just used to run, you know, going up the Fletch, and I'd leave Beardo on his own. And I remember playing with Kevin Nichols and Luton, and I was still doing the same thing 10 years later. And I used to just run forward and, you know, gamble on things. And Mel seen that, you know, and it was hard to play against, because now when you play against players that just run forward from midfield, it's difficult. So it was Mel convinced me. I'm one of those people that when I get told, right, okay, this is where you're going to play, I went and I worked on it, and I worked on it tirelessly. My receiving skills and what hadn't been brought up as a boy was receiving skills. Everything was back to goal as a centre forward. You were back to goal. So the picture changed when you went into midfield, and it's something I worked on every day. I was out in the training ground every day trying to, your receiving skills, your vision opening up, your burden of fences, we used to call it, knowing what's around you, because I didn't have that awareness in midfield, and it was something that grew as time went on to try and make myself better in it. And then you start making a name for yourself as a goal scoring midfielder, and it's probably easier to score goals from midfield than it is to get 20 goals a season. I think as well, when you're smaller up front, it's difficult. The game, was becoming quicker and faster, and I was never that quick. So it probably suited me, probably give me a bit more longevity in my career than maybe if I'd have stuck with it. So I'm thankful to Mel for that.
If you think if you probably were 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead of your time, because if you played now, they only have the one striker. You'd have played as a number 10 behind them, and that was the kind of the role that you probably played anyway, wasn't it? When you were saying you didn't do your defensive duties or whatever, that is that role. You were probably born for a role that is now a good role.
Yeah, nobody created that role at that stage. That would have been great. You just as a manager, I hate number 10s. I hate them because they don't work hard enough, and I always think they're not good enough to play up front. They're not disciplined enough to play. And that was probably me. That was me in an absolute. But yeah, it was a position that I found. But as I sort of went further down my career, I realised that I became a little bit more aware of what I needed to do to stay in teams, and my game evolved until I went to Luton, and it was a case where I was an out-and-out midfielder, and was a little bit deeper, probably didn't have legs to get up and down the pitch as much as I did when I was at Bournemouth and Preston, and the latter days at Luton where I couldn't bomb up and down, but and then I learned how to tackle as well, so that was handy. So I think I changed completely. I ended up sitting in midfield for Luton as well, and I think you do that there. You just evolve, and your game becomes a bit more of an all-round game and less selfish.
So how did the transition to management come about? Because your first coaching job was Oldham Athletic, which was as a notorious revolving door there. So
that was a mistake.
Yeah, what happened? What happened?
Actually, it was much before that. I finished at Luton when I was 33. I had, again, back problems, so I retired from there, and I actually took a job with Northern Ireland. I took a job with the under-17s and under-19s with Northern Ireland. I moved back home, and then Michael O'Neill came in and took charge of the senior squad. And Michael moved me up straight away. I worked all my way up. So I started with under-12s and under-16s, girls football, the best players in the country. So it was a real learning curve, not like nowadays where, depending on your name, you get a job without doing the groundwork. And, I see people linked with jobs now with absolutely no background in coaching. Very, very frustrating. But I done it the hard way. I went down to the grassroots level of it, went up to under-17s, 19s. When Michael came in, he moved me up with the first team. He brought me up straight away in with the full setup, the under-21s and the full setup. And, I managed to work with under-21s, and it was there Ian Barraclough actually seen me coaching and asked me to come over and be assistant manager at Motherwell. So I was actually assistant manager at Motherwell before I went to Oldham. So I was there for a year. Motherwell were bottom of the league. We managed to beat Rangers in a playoff final, 6-3. So that was the start of my coaching, sort of role and career, really. So right at the bottom, coaching kids, the under-21s. And then I went to the European Championships with Northern Ireland as first team coach with Michael O'Neill. So, that was an unbelievable experience. We managed to get to the last 16, a small country of 1.5 million people. It was like Bournemouth winning the Premier League. For us to even get that far, that analogy is probably not. It's not an exaggeration. With the players we had and the pool of players we had. So it was unbelievable to be part of that. And I took a lot of the coaching, a lot of the sessions there. Michael O'Neill gave me my head, and was a massive influence in my coaching career. So from there, I ended up coming back from the European Championships. I was assistant manager at Motherwell, and I just thought, I want to go on my own. I want to do it my way now, and I got the opportunity presented to me to go and manage Oldham. And Oldham, historically, big club, very good club. Naively, as you do when you first started out in management, I thought I could change the world. and I took a job on that was, as you say, it was a revolving door. It was a poison chalice, if I'm being absolutely honest. There were 3 professional players there when I came, and I'd been at the Euros, so I came very late. It was 3 weeks before the start of the season. Our first game was away to Millwall at the Den, of all the places, and I signed 23 players in 3 weeks before the season. So right from the start, it's an impossible task. I was told, get to Christmas, just keep us within touch and distance of the boys at the bottom. All it really was a consolidation year. The chairman, let's say, was hard to work with. A decent enough guy away from football, but it wasn't for me. I probably learned more in that 6 months. And funny enough, I had Sean O'Driscoll with me. I brought Sean up with me to Oldham. And I brought Ian Barraclough in as my assistant manager, so we reversed roles. So it was an absolute learning curve. It was a hiding to nothing, if I'm being totally honest. And it's a shame because given time there, it has the basis of being a very good football club. The fans were tremendous with me. And since I went, they've probably had about 7 more managers since then.
Yeah, including Paul Scholes.
Yeah, Scholes, he lasted 4 weeks. Yeah. And it's a shame because if they give people time, and I think when you look now, any manager that's had longevity in football usually ends up doing quite well if they're the right person. You look at Eddie, you look at Sean Dyche, you look at myself at Motherwell. I had, on and off, including assistant manager, almost 6.5, 7 years there. And when you have longevity, you have time to build. There, I had 6 months, so we ended up we were only a couple of points off safety, and I lost my job at Christmas. I was out of work 3 weeks, and I managed to get a call from Mark McGee, who was the Motherwell manager at the time, and asked me to come back and help him. Motherwell were second bottom of the league, and I ended up being there 1 week, and Mark got sacked, and they asked me to take the job. And for the next 7 years, 5 seasons, whatever it was, I ended up being manager there. So Oldham was a massive learning curve for me, in management now, and I've earned right and got myself in a position where I can choose carefully my next job. At that stage, I just wanted a chance. Like for all first-time managers, you just want a chance. You want to put your stamp on it. I'd been to the European Championships. I'd worked with Johnny Evans and Steve Davis and Kyle Lafferty, Gareth McCauley, Aaron Hughes, the top international players. I'd worked under a coach of Michael O'Neill's calibre, and I wanted to put my own stamp on things, and I jumped into it. I jumped into a club where, in reality, I had no chance. I was destined for failure. And I count myself very lucky. I think the percentage of managers who get another job at the level I got a job at, I think 80% of the first-time managers never get another job. Yeah. So I was lucky. I had the belief of people like the chief executive at Motherwell and the chairman, Jim McMahon and Alan Burrows. And they'd seen what I'd done in terms of coaching-wise. They'd seen how I conducted myself. I was very forward as an assistant manager, and it was something I was lucky that they seen management material in me and weren't blighted by the Oldham experience and offered me the job.
You had two cup finals, didn't you, in your time at Motherwell? Do you think Motherwell, similar to Bournemouth, that Eddie Howe found, that you can get so far and then there's a kind of a glass ceiling, isn't there, in terms of how far you can push on, and then if you don't quite hit that level again, people start to think, oh, let's get someone else. But it must be frustrating, isn't it? Because it is a bit of a glass ceiling club, isn't it, Motherwell? Yeah,
you've hit the nail on the head. The unfortunate thing is people in England, and I'm as guilty as anybody when I played in England, I didn't know too much about Scottish football, if the truth be told. The financial disparity between the Rangers, your Celtics, your Aberdeens, your Hibs and your Hearts, the club like Motherwell is incredible. I think somebody used the analogy of, there's a bigger financial difference between Motherwell and Celtic than there is between PSG and Celtic, and this is like a club with the print their own money. So it's, to do what we've done at Motherwell, when I took over the club, they were second bottom. They had conceded 30 goals in 10 games. It was very, very difficult. So what we done, we stayed up. I literally had to rechange the whole club. We had 10 players who were over the age of 32, club legends, James McFadden, Keith Lasley, people like that who had real affinity to the football club. So we managed to bring in a young, vibrant side, and we played a style of football at the start to win football matches. We went a little bit longer. We went a little bit more direct. It was against what I really believed and wanted to do, but it was what was available to me. We had boys on, our average wage was £800-900 when you've got players at Rangers and Celtic on 30 grand a week, and you're signing players for 5 million, and our budget was 1.6 million on a playing budget. So it was just no comparison whatsoever. So to keep it, every year you lose your best players at Motherwell. So in the first season we managed to get to 2 cup finals, which was the first time in 50 odd years that Motherwell had got there. And then we came up against a Celtic side, Brendan Rodgers' Celtic side, who were treble winners. We just couldn't compete against them. They were so good. They hadn't lost a game all season. So we lost both finals. We did put a good account of ourselves, played a long time with 10 men. And then the whole team got broken up again. So the team that we built, the problem at Motherwell, as you say about the glass ceiling, is people only see we sold David Turnbull, a young academy boy, for 3.2 million. We sold James Scott for 1.5 million. Cedric Keeper. Our plan at Motherwell was we bought boys from lower Premier League sides like Meldon, boys that hadn't quite made it in Premier Leagues and maybe had lost their way a little bit but had good attributes, and we brought them back up again. Cedric Keeper, we brought him up. He was on £600 within a season. After the cup finals, he signs for £1 million for Wigan. And the list goes on. We had the most academy minutes in the UK. So the staff deserve so much credit because we were able to combine the young players at Motherwell, the real community feel of the football club, with players from England that we brought up and sold for big, big money. And this was a club, again, similar to Bournemouth. We had £4 million of external debts. We managed to clear all the debts. So the club is now debt-free. We've got the 2 cup finals. And we finished third in the last, in the season. We qualified for Europe, and finishing third behind Rangers and Celtic is like winning the championship. Yeah. It's like Bournemouth winning the championship. It's incredible. And the problem is, without investment, which Bournemouth did have the investment, Motherwell didn't. They're a fan-owned club. They only have 4,000 fans. Win or lose, they have 4,000 fans. We got the cup final. We were third place in the league, and we're still only getting 4,500 home fans. And it's a club that has a ceiling, unfortunately, and it's not sustainable to be in third place. The budget's a 10th place budget, yet you're expected to be in the top 6. And Motherwell have been perennial overachievers. We massively overachieved. Stuart McCall overachieved with Motherwell as well. And myself and the staff have managed to do that. And unfortunately, again, this season people thought we finished third, they'll be able to go and build on that. But actually, we looked after about 3 or 4 games, and the starting 11 had changed by 8 players. And if you include injuries, you're always going to get your injuries. So wholesale changes every year. And again, at Christmas, you're always likely to lose your best players, or the boys you've got on loan go back to their parent clubs. Callum Langs went back this year. Devontae Cole went the year before. James Scott went to Hull for 1.5 million. You never get a chance to build what you want to build. And it's similar job to Bournemouth. And I'd rebuilt the side over a 5-season period, probably 7 or 8 times. I say that because I'd done that at Christmas as well. We reinvented ourselves. We were able to put a stamp on it where we had young players, vibrant. We played a style of football that I eventually wanted. And, I learned from Oldham, you need to stay in a job to put your style of football on. And in the first season and a half at Motherwell, I played a different style, a more aggressive style, 3-5-2. We played in the other end of the pitch. We put a lot of balls in the box. We were successful with it. We sold players with it. And gradually I was able to implement the way I wanted to play. We played an attractive brand of football. And unfortunately, at the start of this season, we didn't have people to put the ball in the net. We had 70% possession. We percentages that were close to Celtic and Rangers in terms of dominating the game. And it was how I wanted to play, and it was something I wanted to do. And we didn't quite have the rub of the green. Injuries went against us. And, it got to a stage where I just thought, I'm going to let somebody else rebuild the game. And, Graham Alexander's came in, and he's been able to sign 6 new players at Christmas. And that's what you have to do at a club like Motherwell. And you have to rebuild it every Christmas, every summer. And I just thought, I've been here 5 seasons now, and I wanted to, I thought enough. I'd had enough. I thought it was right for everybody, and but I look back and I think really, really good times with really good people.
I mean, you're lucky, Robbo, because you've had international experience as well with the Northern Ireland setup. You've done really well for a modest-sized club. Where does that leave you as a manager? That experience, do you feel maybe I'll do more international stuff, or I want to go to a bigger club, or I've been successful managing a club on limited means? I mean, do you have options, do you think?
Well, I mean, I've turned down a job already since I left Motherwell, and I've spoke to one other club. But for me, it has to be right now. It has to be. I mean, I'm not saying the club wasn't right that offered me the job. It was just timing wise. It just wasn't the right time. I've had a little break from it. When you're constantly immersed in football for 7 seasons, as it was altogether at one club, you become immersed in the football club. You fall in love with the football club, and unfortunately, when you get beat, you take the hits harder. You become emotionally attached with your decisions, unfortunately, and you sacrifice a lot of things. And I sacrificed a lot of things. I missed my youngest boy grow up a lot. I was away from Northern Ireland and I missed him. Lucky enough, Tracy, Harry and Charlie's mum done brilliant and brought them up brilliantly. And I've been very lucky that way. But you do sacrifice a lot, and you need a little break at times. And I've had my break. I've had, nearly 2.5 months off now. And, I'm ready to go. So what options there is, hopefully I'll be able to pick the right one. I think for me, it has to be the right people. I was very lucky that I worked with good people at Motherwell, Alan Burrows and Jim McMahon, give me the run of the football club. Similar to what Eddie had at Bournemouth. It was his decision. It was his final decision on recruitment. And that's that's very few and far between now in football. Working for people that allow you to run the football club, that allow you to. I know there's sporting directors and all now, and you have to work with people, but to have that respect and two-way respect, it's important. I'm ready to go back in again. To a project that I feel you can be successful, and it's maybe not backs against the wall all the time. And you can't. Beggars can't be choosers. I'm open to lots of things. I've obviously I interviewed for the Northern Ireland job the last time, and again, it probably wasn't the right time because replacing Michael O'Neill was almost impossible, which Ian Barraclough's finding now is difficult. But I'm sure Ian's going to be the right person for the job. But I'm open to all options. But as I say, unlike Oldham, where I wasn't in a position to maybe pick and choose that prudently, hopefully I am a little bit more prudent in the decision this time.
There was a few, more than a few Bournemouth fans were touting your name when Jason Tindall went. Did you ever think of chucking your hat in the ring for the Bournemouth job?
I would absolutely love the Bournemouth job. I did chuck my hat in the ring.
Oh, right.
So, I have to be honest. Yeah, I mean, both times the Bournemouth job came up, I have to be honest, I was still in a job with Motherwell the first time. So, I don't work like that. Out of respect, I would never apply for a job when I'm in a job. But I was hoping to get the phone call the first time Motherwell had finished third in the league. I thought, profile was high, and you were hoping. But obviously, Jason was the right person I felt at that time, and rightfully so. And again, I was out of work this time, and Bournemouth would have been a great opportunity. But hopefully, somewhere along the line, it may come around. As I say, you look at clubs and as a player you've played for and you have a real affinity to, and Bournemouth and Luton and now Motherwell are 3 clubs that are up there that you have a real affinity with a football club. A club that has got good facilities, they're ambitious, and the setup's ready to go there, and it's certainly something I wouldn't rule out. I'll be very, very interested in should the opportunity ever arise.
Well, the way we're going at the moment, it'd probably only be a couple of months.
Certainly, I could say I did apply for the job this time, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can be around for the next time there's an opportunity, Robbo, because I think a lot of Bournemouth fans would love to have you at the club because we remember you with great affection from those days in the late 90s. Those. All those goals that you scored before your kids were born. Fantastic.
Yeah, Harry's taking the blame on that, definitely.
So there's been a lot of talk down here about Eddie going for a new job, and Celtic's been one of the names touted. Do you think Eddie would be suited to the job up in Scotland for one of the biggest clubs?
I think he'd certainly be good enough. I've absolutely no doubt about that. I think the difference he'll find is the expectation up here is incredible, absolutely incredible. You know, the amount of scrutiny on the two teams, Rangers and Celtic, up here. You know, your life's not your own. You know, I know Eddie, and I know he probably quite enjoys down in the Bournemouth lifestyle. But you know, I think even people like Stephen Gerrard and Neil Lennon will tell you it's scrutiny beyond belief. You lose one game and everybody wants you sacked. There's no time to build anything. You know, instantly you have to win the league. You have to win every game and every competition, and you have to do it with style. It's the expectation on the teams in terms of Rangers and Celtic here is absolutely incredible. And I think that would be very different than what the expectations were at Bournemouth in terms of management and style and coping with it. There's no doubt in my mind he would make a very, very good manager. Whether you get the time to build the team that Celtic do need now, they need a little bit of an injection of players. I don't know. I think Eddie would have to look at that himself. Only he would know whether he wanted to take that on board. Excellent.
Well, look, thanks so much for spending so much time with us this afternoon. It's been terrific talking with you. And we wish you all the very best. Wherever you turn up, I'm sure it won't be long.
Brilliant. Jeff, Neil, good to speak. Really good
Lovely
to
see you.
And hopefully Bournemouth finish the season strongly.
I'm sure they will.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Well, Robbo, some great stories there, Neil.
Yeah, I mean, what a fantastic player. I'd forgotten how often he had played for us. I knew he was around a long time, but I didn't realise he'd nearly made a quarter of a century of appearances. And just lovely to reminisce. That was a really, really lovely era, the Mel Machin era, the cup runs and the nearly getting to the playoffs twice, and what a fantastic crop of players. And it was just lovely hearing his thoughts about players like Ian Cox and Matty Holland, and great players.
Yeah, what a team! What a team! And I think we look at the current squad, and that sort of team spirit was definitely there in that late '90s era, wasn't it? Even though there was so much chopping and changing with new players coming in, old players going out, Mel had that eye for building a great squad of players who got on and fought for each other. Yeah,
and such a different era as well. Just hearing about some of the sizes of the crowds, and I remember the Shrewsbury game, because it was pre-tickets. You didn't have tickets in those days, did you? And the ground was full at 6:30 for a 7:45 kickoff, because that was the only way you could guarantee that you could get in. And so really fond memories of things like that. I remember the first players running out on the pitch, and there were 14,000 people cheering them on because they were so bored. We were just waiting for something to happen, and just a couple of players coming out to warm up became major event. So really, really fun times. Fun.
Bit different before the pre-Sweet Caroline days as well, for which we're all grateful.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Anyway, thanks, Neil, for joining us. That was a terrific chat, and see you on the next one.
See you next time.
Marvellous. Right, so thank you for joining us today as well. If you've got any ideas for people who you'd like us to interview, then do get in touch. We'd love to keep these going for as long as we can. Neil, terrific as ever. Thank you also for your comments during the show. If you like this video, you know what to do. Your support is always appreciated. Up the cherries, and we'll see you in the next video.